while I was at the gym this morning, got a call about this story here, and I find this just what do you suppose going on here, folks? Where have we seen this one before? Every time Justin Trudeau needs to find a distraction, he wants to put your attention someplace else. Well, there's India. Even though this is the same Justin Trudeau, of course, who said, first of all, accused the Indians of plotting murder and mayhem against Khalistani terrorists. Then he denied he even said it because the Privy Council office came out and said there's no evidence of any wrongdoing by Indian Prime Minister Modi or any of the diplomats here in Canada. So, what do you think Justin Trudeau is going to do now? Now, of course, he's running down the Mar-a-Lago. We talked about this all weekend. And of course, at the beginning, we saw Dominique LeBlanc describe this tender relationship that exists between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump. And they're just the best of friends. And Donald Trump, of course, just thinks the world of him, even though he's called him two-faced and he thinks his policies are crap. But they just love each other. But Justin Trudeau needs a distraction right now because Pierre Poilievre, remember the last poll I showed you from last week? Conservatives, 47%. Liberals, 17%, tied with the NDP for second place. 30 points ahead. Conservatives are 30 points ahead in this poll. The bad news polls are 22 points ahead. So, of course, Justin Trudeau needs a little bit of distraction here. And Patrick Brown is the distraction. Yes. Yes. So the Indian government was interfering in Patrick Brown's conservative leadership campaign. Nobody needed to interfere in Patrick Brown's conservative leadership campaign. He was in the basement. 4% support. Now, I was very involved in this campaign. I was writing daily columns at this time for the Western Standard. I openly endorsed Pierre Poilievre because I said he was the only viable candidate. He was the only really, truly conservative candidate. We needed a change from his predecessor. We could not go on with red Tories running the party. Jean Charest was a disaster, another red Tory. Patrick Brown was the guy who was a horrible provincial conservative leader in Ontario that betrayed everybody that he went out, all the grassroots supporters he went out and attracted, he's betrayed them all. Here he was pretending to be this social conservative. And of course, the first thing he did was start going to gay pride parades and sticking everybody's nose in it. And that's why Patrick Brown didn't have a hope in hell. But I have to laugh because, let me see this, my old friend, of course, and I said this at the time, I said, Pierre Poilievre is the only chance the Conservative Party has to stay alive as a party. If they choose another red Tory, the party's dead. This will mean Conservatives will find another party. Obviously, that would have been the People's Party of Canada. But they needed a viable, principled Conservative, and that's why they chose Pierre Poilievre. Now, I have to laugh. Now, they're asking my old friend Michelle Rempel-Garner, who I said at the time publicly, don't support Patrick Brown. It's a really, really stupid thing to do. But of course she did. And she's been trying to run back from it ever since. This is Brown's national campaign co-chair, Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner, allegedly was pressured to withdraw her support for Brown in the 2022 Conservative Party Canada leadership race. Confidential sources told Radio Canada. Rempel-Garner categorically denies the allegation. Well, I have no clue if that's the case, but this is much ado about nothing because Patrick Brown did not have a hope in hell of becoming the leader of the Conservative Party. I don't think he could have won even if Pierre Poilievre wasn't in the race because he was just so lacking in credibility after his time as the leader of the provincial PC party. And believe me, he was a progressive conservative in every sense of the word. Now, before we get into the two visions for the border, I want to talk about how Pierre Poilievre very cleverly has outsmarted the NDP with their non-confidence. Of course, Jagmeet Singh is only hanging around to get his pension. He's keeping the government alive until he can get his pension. That's all he's up to. It's clear. So one day I hate Justin Trudeau. The next day I'm going to support Justin Trudeau. One day I can see eye to eye with Justin Trudeau on this one. Next day we're going to vote against this one. Except when the actual vote comes and Jagmeet Singh in his Maserati car and his leather bags and his designer watches, he screws his supporters every time. And of course his MPs are fed up with him too. Who wouldn't be? So what does Pierre Poilievre do here? I agree with Jagmeet Singh that the Trudeau government is greedy and anti-worker. Now, Jagmeet Singh will have a chance to vote for a non-confidence motion made up entirely of his own words. Will Jagmeet vote yes or no on his own words? And here's the common sense conservative motion. I think this is brilliant. And actually, in church yesterday, one of my very good friends, who's probably watching this right now, reminded me of this because I had completely forgotten Pierre Poilievre had done this. Just so much going on. But Mark, if you're watching right now, thank you very much for reminding me of this during our break in church yesterday. Common sense conservative motion. Whereas the leader of the New Democratic said he ripped up his supply and confidence agreement with the Liberal government. Yeah, he said that I don't know how many times. Whereas the Liberal leader said the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for the people. Whereas the NDP leader said the Liberal government will always cave to corporate greed and always step in to make sure the unions have no powers. In response to the Liberal Labour minister's referrals to the Canadian Industrial Relations Board that ordered the workers of Teamsters Canada Rail Conference and the ILWU 514 to resume their duties, violating their right to strike. Therefore, the House agrees with the NDP leader, and the House proclaims it has lost confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Whoa! That is good politics. I don't know if Pierre thought of that one himself or one of the advisors did, but this is a brilliant plan to make Jagmeet Singh eat his own words. This man, I am so fed up. I think he's even more unprincipled than Justin Trudeau. This is a man who just completely pretends to be a friend of the workers, and he's a bloated corporate lawyer who's got just too much time and money on his hands, and I don't know what he's doing in politics because he really could have found just as much money elsewhere, in the business of law, but no, he wants to feed off the taxpayers, and that's all it comes down to. Now, let us have a look at two views here of the border. Now, Dominic LeBlanc, of course, we'll have on in a minute. He, believe it or not, is still claiming that we need more security at the border, but that's Stephen Harper's fault because Stephen Harper took all of the border security away 9 years ago. And for some reason, they've forgotten to put it back. But it's Stephen Harper's fault. And that's Dominic LeBlanc is so lacking in credibility. But listen I'll play as much of this as I can. This is a really good dissertation from conservative leader Pierre Poilievre yesterday, Sunday, talking about his vision for the border.
Trudeau is a weak leader who has lost control of spending, lost control of immigration, and lost control of our border. And don't take my word for it. Look at the facts. His own government admits there are as many as 500,000 people in Canada illegally. We know that seizures of fentanyl doses by U.S. Border Patrol at U.S.-Canada border have more than tripled between last year and this year. In 12 months to September 2024, 11,600 pounds of drugs have been seized by U.S. Border Patrol agents at the Canada-U.S. border. In 2024, U.S. border guards caught 10 times more people sneaking southward from Canada than in 2022. This is a problem that we expect will only get worse because we have 700,000 international students here now that Trudeau and his former immigration minister, Sean Fraser, hinted that they would be able to stay permanently. And now suddenly that message has reversed, And Trudeau and the NDP Liberal government say that their plan is to hope, with the honor system, that they will leave voluntarily. CSIS, and then there's the drugs. CSIS, I'm quoting now from a document obtained by Access to Information by Blacklock's reporter. This is a briefing note the Prime Minister received almost a year ago. CSIS identifies more than 350 organized crime groups actively involved in the domestic illegal fentanyl market. And what has Trudeau done since he got this information back in January, almost a year ago? Absolutely nothing, other than try to legalize and liberalize these same drugs. He has weakened our borders, and he doesn't even inspect 99% of shipping containers that come into our country. Since Trudeau became Prime Minister, there's been a 632% increase in U.S. border control encounters with people illegally attempting to enter the United States from Canada. In the first 10 months of 2024 alone, U.S. Border Patrol has intercepted more than 21,000 people illegally crossing our border. And on top of that, doesn't include the dangers that are coming into Canada from the United States because of Trudeau's broken border. According to Toronto police, 82% of gun crime is done with American guns that Trudeau allows over our borders because of the weak inspection system and the drugs that come across the border, the existence of Roxham Road and other illegal border crossings that Justin Trudeau opened right after he put out a tweet to the entire world saying, "Welcome to Canada, come on in, we'll invite anybody across our borders." That chaos has persisted. It is clear that after 9 years, Trudeau is not worth the cost, the crime, the corruption, and the chaos. He has lost control of our border, lost control of immigration, lost control of our finances. And that is why today I am calling on the government to fix Trudeau's broken border. I'm demanding that the Trudeau government quickly present a Canada First plan to Parliament that includes increased patrols, working with provincial law enforcement, deploying new technology, cracking down on illegal drug production and trafficking, tightening visas, securing our ports, and expanding the mandate of CBSA officers to fix the broken border. These new technologies would include scanners, helicopters, towers, drones. We also proposed temporarily deputizing provincial law enforcement whose premiers wish to fill in the holes the Trudeau government has caused. This, of course, is I'm embarrassed that we even have to suggest this, but it would be a temporary measure to fix what Trudeau, or to patch up the holes that Trudeau has opened. We need a real crackdown on illegal drug production and trafficking by reversing, for example, the C5 changes that Trudeau brought in, which reduced penalties for production and trafficking of hard drugs. We need boots on the ground, scanners all around, and a stronger border. We need to expand the mandate of CBSA officers to enforce the law beyond border posts. The reality is that Trudeau has lost control of the deficit of immigration and of our border. In less than 2 months, President Trump will come into office. He has threatened the possibility of imposing tariffs unless there is action to address Trudeau's broken border. Since Trudeau became Prime Minister, there have been massive increases in illegal border activity. It is his job to immediately introduce action to solve it. Now, it's not just for Donald Trump. Frankly, we have to acknowledge that he is the new President of the United States of America, and we have to protect our economic interests, but we have to protect our own interests. It is unacceptable for Canadians to have 47,000 overdose deaths. It is unacceptable for Canadians to have 350 crime groups actively producing and shipping fentanyl. It is unacceptable for Canadians to have $100 billion of money laundering. It is unacceptable for Canadians to see a 200% increase in overdose deaths. Even if President Trump were not calling for this action, we should be doing it for our own country and for our own interests.
Yeah, I like that because it's Canada first equals America first. We can work together because we should have the same values. We should be working towards the same objective. That is so good. And remember, when you see this story today, you're going to see this throughout the day. Trudeau is going to, I mark my words, question period today, when Pierre Poilievre stands up and asks Justin Trudeau, hey, what happened in Mar-a-Lago? How'd your little trip go? Trudeau's going to come back with this. Trudeau's going to come back with this. He's going to say, well, what about you? You received assistance from the Indian government to become leader of the Conservative Party Canada. That's what's going to happen today. Anyway.
Ho, 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 ho!